Shabbat Shalom, this is Larry Mitchell with Friends of Israel. Every year, Jewish people commemorate the night of Kristallnacht, which took place on November 9th, 1938. Let me read from the Holocaust Museum a description of Kristallnacht. On the night of November 9th, 1938, violence against Jews broke out across the Reich. It appeared to be unplanned, set off by Germans' anger over the assassination of a German official in Paris at the hands of a Jewish teenager. In fact, German propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels and other Nazis carefully organized the pogroms. In 2 days, over 250 synagogues were burnt, over 7,000 Jewish businesses were trashed and looted, dozens of Jewish people were killed, and Jewish cemeteries, hospitals, schools, and homes were looted while police and fire brigades stood by. The pogroms became known as Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, for the shattered glass from the store windows that littered the streets. The morning after the pogroms, 30,000 German Jewish men were arrested for the crime of being Jewish and sent to concentration camps where hundreds of them perished. Some Jewish women were arrested and sent to local jails. Businesses owned by Jews were not allowed to reopen unless they were managed by non-Jews. Curfews were placed on Jews, limiting the hours of days they could leave their homes. After the night of broken glass, life was even more difficult for German and Austrian Jewish children and teenagers. Already barred from entering museums, public playgrounds, and swimming pools, now they were expelled from public schools. Jewish youngsters, like their parents, were totally segregated in Germany. In despair, many Jewish adults committed suicide. Most families tried desperately to leave. And that is from the article, The Night of Broken Glass. Many historians link the beginning of the Holocaust with Kristallnacht. And so the world really didn't know just how horrible the Holocaust was, for the most part, until the Allies liberated the death camps in 1945. There was great repulsion and a desire by most people that this kind of genocide could never happen again. What is sad is history seems to be repeating itself with the boycotts, divestment, and sanctions movement. It was developed by the Palestinians as a propaganda tool against Israel. From their own website, bdsmovement.net, they explain it this way. The boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement works to end international support for Israel's oppression of Palestinians and pressure Israel to comply with international law. Now, one should not be surprised if non-Christian pagans embrace the BDS movement. The Bible prophesies that anti-Semitism will increase in the last days. In the book of Joel chapter 3, verses 1 to 3, we read, "For behold, in those days, and at that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and have parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people, and given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink." In the New Testament, we had Jesus referring to that time in Matthew chapter 24, verse 9. Then they shall deliver you, the Jewish people, up to be afflicted, and they shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Bible-believing Christians understand that the return of the chosen people to the promised land is fulfilling Bible prophecy. In Isaiah 11:10-12 we read, "In that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign to the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, from the islands of the sea. And they shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth." Sadly, there are many liberals who profess to be Christians. I rather doubt if they are really Christians. They reject the authority of God's holy word. But several liberal denominations have been quick to jump onto the BDS movement. The United Church of Canada has officially passed a resolution supporting the BDS movement. Let me just read from the General Council Article 42, this includes initiating and development of a program of education and advocacy in cooperation with our partners related to divestment from and economic sanctions against all corporations and institutions complicit in and benefiting from the illegal occupation. This would include education about tourism, which bolsters the oppression of Palestinians. The Commission also encourages all courts, bodies, and members of the United Church of Canada to apply such divestment strategies and sanctions until such time as the occupation of the Palestinian territories end. The United Church has become willingly ignorant of God's promise to bless those who bless Israel and to curse those who curse Israel. In Genesis chapter 12, we should get all United Church people to read this. "Now the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make thee a great nation, and will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curses thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." And then in Psalm 129, verse 5, another verse that should be read to United Church people: "Let them all be confounded and turn back that hate Zion." And another passage that we should read to them, Psalm 69:35, says, "For God will save Zion, and will build the cities of Judah, that they may dwell there and have it in possession." So they're fighting against the Lord who is bringing them back. And then Psalm 102 verse 16 says, "When the Lord shall build up Zion, he shall appear in his glory." I'm not ashamed to be called a Christian Zionist, because I love what God loves. And God has brought the Jewish people back to the promised land, and I support the Lord's program in doing that. But rather than boycotting Israel, Bible-believing Christians would be better to boycott those people who are opposed to the return of the Jewish people to the promised land. Institutions like the United Church, who has publicly embracing the BDS movement. Romans 16:17 says, "Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which you have learned, and avoid them." And then Galatians 1:8 says, "But though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed." You know, liberal denominations who reject God's promises of the Jewish people returning to the land usually also have rejected what the Bible teaches about salvation. They have rejected the Bible totally. And so rather than boycotting, divesting, and sanctions against Israel, let's begin boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning those who are opposed to Israel. In fact, let's do more than that. Let's be an advocate for Israel, because God will bless those who bless the chosen people. This is Larry Mitchell with Friends of Israel. Shabbat Shalom.